ridges and mountain ranges, water rushing down bare slopes, taking topsoil, incising streams, and then rushing out to sea. And people say, oh, we must have the water must get out to the sea. That's rubbish. In the early days, Murray River and so on, the rivers tended to be pools or lagoons of many big banks of soft grasses and high reeds, and very seldom did the water actually go out into the sea. It was filling the floodplains. It was servicing the wetlands and keeping us prepared for drought conditions. So that is very important too. So, having said that about the paddock, then I think we've got to say, right up, who in fixing the paddock, who's looking after 60% or more of the landscape? And of course, it's the farmers and graziers of this country. And for 130,000 farmers to play their part in achieving the policy goal of a landscape that is fit for purpose, two elements stand out. Firstly, to pay our farmers a fair price for their product. And somehow we've got to get on top of this, whatever it is. Secondly, they need to be adequately rewarded in some form for their custodian role in caring for the soil on behalf of 23 million urban Australians. I think beyond that, it needs to get 23 million urban Australians connected with our farmers. We have to reconnect urban Australia to its rural roots. How do we get all our kids supporting our farmers and really interested in the soil? Well, that's got to be a policy driver, a national policy driver. But let me give you one simple solution. Why don't we put a garden in every school in the country? A garden that is properly managed and taught so that kids 6, 9, 12, 15 go through a whole process of learning about soil microbiology, etc., transpiration, and where you can teach maths, where you can teach science, where you can teach art, and you can teach literature, all in the one place. You can even put a little mining derrick, model mining derrick, in the middle of the garden and talk about what do we need to think about before this mine starts doing things. And that way you get an educated population, and you'd get more kids going to ag science, and I think more kids going out onto farming. So that, I think, is not a bad idea. And I think Landcare Australia and its junior landcare program that's established 11,000 junior landcare schools and registered in the National Landcare Directory, that is terrific, but let's get one in every school. So science, let me talk a little bit about that. From my observations as the soil advocate, we've got a lot of good science going on, but it's penny packeted and it's all over the place. Nobody knows definitively where all the science knowledge is, or what it is that we know about. So surely we've got to do a stock take of what our scientific knowledge is and where is it, define the shortfalls, and then use a priority sense to then fill those gaps in scientific knowledge. And to do that, it requires, I think, some form of national system of information data collation, that is bringing it together, analysis, and then a capacity to disseminate it to the stakeholders. Who knows, in 20 years we might have a grazier in the Northern Territory or a viticulturist in South Australia able to press an 1800 button with a question that he wants or she wants answered scientifically, and it goes into a stream and is dealt with. I'm speaking very simplistically, but you know what I'm talking about. And an important scientific context in this day is to speed up research on the capacity of soils to sequester carbon and reduce emissions. And now we've got NASA satellite technology, which hopefully this year, with some ground sensing, will give us for the first time a capacity to look at the whole of the Australian landscape every month or thereabouts and tell us what's actually happening in the soil, in water retention, transpiration, fires, how much is green, and so on and so forth. And when we get that, then I think we'll be able to put in a long-term evaluation process that will go forever and build up our data and our knowledge of the landscape itself. The next area I think that needs to be looked at is policy coordination. The problem or the issue that I see, and again in my travels, is that you've got all the stakeholder interest in soil, and it should be everyone because all of us eat, is generally handled by two state departments. It's handled by Agriculture and Environment. But surely in dealing with a policy on land management, it also involves education, it involves health, it involves regional, it involves indigenous, it involves mining, it involves trade, it involves national security. All those organisations have an interest in the soil and how it's managed. Therefore they should input into this restoration and maintenance of a landscape fit for purpose. And to do that, to pull it together at federal and state level, I would just suggest the establishment of either joint parliamentary or cabinet subcommittees under a very senior minister, maybe Deputy Prime Minister or Deputy Premier, who can pull the interested departments together and develop those parts of the policies that government should be responsible for: regulatory control, some form of scientific support and funding support in appropriate areas. The soil research development and extension strategies I spoke about earlier, in which we had some degree of input, is the first cab off the rank to pull all that together, and I'm absolutely delighted to say to you today how pleased I was that when a few weeks ago the Prime Minister, as Chairman of the National Science Council, headed by the Chief Scientist, Professor Ian Chubb, agreed or approved that soil, water and agriculture would be 3 of the top 7 or 8 research priorities of the nation. Now that lifts the ball game right up there. And that's because of our inputs into that. And the second is that the research, development and extension strategy I spoke about will now be managed by CSIRO, and Neil McKenzie is the guy that's going to be handling that. So that's good. I finally want to talk a bit about regulatory overburden and lack of cohesion there. As you all know, sometimes what you can do in the stream on the other side of that ridge you can't do on this side. If you look at forestry and catchment management in their areas, you cannot touch a tree or a thing in case they're going to pollute the rivers, etc. But as soon as you get a fence with agriculture on the right-hand side, all sorts of things can happen with all sorts of regulations that are very confusing, and perhaps some of those regulations not necessary or not the right answer to deal with the whole regeneration of the landscape business. So dealing with the overburden and coordinating its improvement is very important. 2 words before I conclude. We're doing quite a lot of work in trying to bring forward innovative farming, grazing, catchment management practices through a little program that I chair, Soils for Life. It's about 21 case studies of farmers and graziers who are going down the slippery slopes to bankruptcy or total soil degradation, and of their own accord found answers to get themselves both economically and environmentally on top of it all. And the stories of how they've done it and the measurements of their successes make up this little book, Soils for Life, on the website www.soilsforlife.org.au. And what I want to see is that 21 sites rolled out to about 100, and then to about 500, and then to about 1,000. Not prescriptive, doesn't tell farmers what to do, merely says people in this situation have done that, here are examples, and we're here to help. Backed up by coordinated science, then I think we'll get somewhere. So we really want to roll that out, and I think that's a good thing. On Monday I'm going out to the Western Division of New South Wales, where Rotary, in partnership with Soils, is supporting 2 farming case studies, Angus White and Ashley McMurtry from Gilgunya Station, and what they've done in managing their properties is being documented, and again you can read what they've done on the Soils for Life website. Let me give you one example only, and we've got